Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 demo of our Playwright's 80-20 Pareto principle series. In this video, we are going to see a smart locators. If you have finished the part 1 and continue with this video, we are going to see how we can customize the locators and what are the locator options that we have in Playwright and what's the 20% of that you should know to do the 80% of your automation. So let's jump into the demo. Right, what is smart locators and what's the gold standard in 2026, especially in terms of Playwright? The hard truth, as you see here, if your tests are flaky, your locators are the problem. Let's say you followed my previous video and added some code gen, recorded and recognized some locators, and you have created an automation for your workflow. But at times you have to customize with some logics. And at that time, you need to know the locator strategy. You can definitely use the LLM like ChatGPT or Copilot. That's what I would recommend. But you should know what are the options and what option you should go, and so that your workflow becomes much faster, your automation does not stutter in between. So the hard truth is that your tests are flaky because your locators are the problem. Here, you look at the locators. This is how traditionally we design the locator using the XPath or the CSS selectors from the DOM. Like it has number 3, number 2, and number in it. If it changes, your workflow will fail. So it's a brittle selector. And if I can bring in our previous demo screen here, let me bring the screen. Over here, if you look at our previous recorded code, you can see that it has a getByRole, page.getByRole, and page.locator. So this is the part we are going to understand. What are all this? This is something that Playwright's own way of writing the locators. Let me jump into the slide. So what is the villain and why Playwright has its own way of detecting the locators? The villain before is this XPath, right? It's like a tree. Like you have to navigate from div, main, and then you have to navigate through different workflows. For example, let me show you what do I mean by that. If you're new to this XPaths, yeah, over here it's there. If you open a source page of any of your web page, it has a structure like this. Why don't I open actually a web page and show you what do I mean? Let's take my YouTube channel here, and if I right click, if I wanted to automate and inspect, you could see the tree. Like if you wanted to click the particular element, let's say if you wanted to click let's say you wanted to select any of the object here, you need to select this particular locator, and within that, if you wanted to further navigate down, you need to select the options. Okay, as you can see, the options are getting highlighted, whatever that you select here. So you need to navigate through, and that's how the locators are framed. The bad villain here is this. What if the order changes tomorrow? What if it gets shuffled? So that's why we've been doing a lot of maintenance work. The robot vision, the legacy tool, is this, that it will look for the IDs, class, and values that you add in the locator, like this, the IDs main. So here the IDs root. But what is the Playwright does? Playwright makes it as human vision. What you see is what belongs to the locator. So looking for a button that says sign up. So the real user don't check for ID, as it says here. They don't check for the IDs, classes, or whatever here. They test for the text that they actually see. For example, here it's sign up. Again, the golden standard here is that page.getByRole. This is the code 20% tool that solves 80% of the locator issues. So the getByRole, for example, this is the button. The Playwright has by default all the names for the objects that is on the locators. This one is button, the one you see on top here. So you can name it as a sign up and it will click on it. If you see heading, just mention it as a heading and click on the heading name. Mention the heading name. And if it's a checkbox, mention it as checkbox and mention the name over there. What it actually does is, in a technical insight way, this locator taps into the accessibility tree. So, if you have seen people who are accessibility users, for example, they might have a vision disabled or temporary disabled or permanent, they enable this accessibility features on a screen, and they read the website and they navigate through the website through the voice control or through some accessibility devices. If the accessibility tree reads that particular object, and that's what Playwright inspects, that's what Playwright detects it, it makes sense. If the screen reader can see it, Playwright can test it. So that's what it is. Hope it makes clear. If not, I'll attach this PPT, have a look, and also the code base. And what is the fallback? The fallback is get by text, and we also have other fallbacks. Now let me take you to the code. Okay, let me minimize, maybe I'll maximize this. Yep, let me take you to the code. Here you see get by role. This is the primary locator strategy for Playwright. And what if that fails? What if you don't have anything to inspect about the get by a role? The other fallback we have is get by text. You can go with the text. Get by text could be what you see on the screen. You may see the text as transaction successful. For example, in this case, the text is in this button sign up. You can enter the sign up if it has text, or the label. The label is something, again, if you inspect, you will see a label. Let me take you to the web page. So if you see a classic example, you can see ID class. In a similar way, you may see the label or text as well. So first check that if it is having that, you can pick it up. The thing here is you see those values on screen, unlike the traditional XPaths here. This is not something you see on screen. This is what you see on screen. So both text and label will appear on the screen. The only thing you have to do is make sure it has the attributes in your the source code. To do that, as I said, right click, inspect, and click the object. For example, if this is the object, right click and then see if it has the particular text or the label. So 99% of the time, one of this will be there. What if that is not there? What if the text is not there? What if the label is not there? In our code as well, CodeGen by default have prioritized this order. If you can look at here, this is a recorded code. It went with text because it couldn't find the role for that. That's why it went with the text. Going back to the question, what if you don't find text, or what if you don't find label? The last option that you have, the next option you have, is priority number 3, that is explicit contract, that is TestID. If you don't know, you can ask your developer to add a parameter that's called get by text ID. You can ask him to literally add a text ID. Just search about it, you will see how they add it. That is something like, if I give you a context, instead of ID, it will look like test-ID. So they add a test ID and they add some value, and they know that they have created this for test purpose and they will not change it. That's the test ID. And one more thing, you can have an action next to it, whatever the action that you want it to do. So for example, if this is an assertion, you can ask it to be visible, or if it's a checkbox, you can ask it to check, or if it's a button, you can ask it to click. So if you press the dot followed by the syntax, it will give you all the actions that is applicable for this particular role. So you can try those. What if, again, the priority 3 fails? There is no explicit contract and get by ID is not displayed. What if the explicit contract fails and there is no get by test ID, and you want another option? The final option, what Playwright recommends, is to go with CSS and XPath if you want to build some complex XPath chain. What actually I have done is, for a while I was thinking that I need to build a complex XPath for a logic to fulfill certain logic, but I have actually pasted that XPath into an LLM, and that converted that XPath to this get by role model. Don't assume that you need to build an XPath or CSS when there is no direct way of accessing the role label or text, role text or label. It actually converts that XPath into your Playwright locator. So maybe you can ask, you can frame an XPath if you're not sure how to frame it with the Playwright, and then put it to the ChatGPT along with your DOM, and it gives you the get by role locator. So that's much faster than this. So this is the order that we should follow. The difference is resilience. The brittle way is this, and the smart way is this, and it breaks if div is added or if structure changes and it's hard to read. And this is surveys generic DOM changes. It survived because then they predominantly keep the names as it is. They may change this, but they will not change the text. It's actually a requirement change, and you will get to know if the requirement changes, and it's readable and self-documenting and explicit user intent. Yeah, so this one I wanted to cover. This is like change. Before it used to be like this, and lastly survive the refactor. For example, this is how your XPath was, this is how your DOM was before, and this is your XPath. Suddenly your DOM gets changed. What happens? Your XPath fails and you get failed error message saying that element not found. But if you use the Smart Locator Playwrights one, your test case passes because button is still a button. There's no change to it. So it's still a submit button. As I said, if it changes, it's a requirement change. And what is the auto wait option that it has? I have already explained this in the theory part of this series about what each of this does. It actually waits. Each of this locator, Playwright locators, waits for the attached connected to the DOM and visibility stable, and whether it receives the event or whether it's enabled. It checks all these checkboxes and then only it throws an error. But so you don't need any more arbitrary sleep time here. So everything is taken care. If you use CodeGen, as I mentioned in this video, by default it prioritizes the order that we discussed here, whatever the order that best suits for that particular DOM. And finally, with this approach, you will write the test that can survive the code, not the test that can fight with the code that the developer develops. Now, the action plan for you is, since you watched this far, go audit your current file that you have created with the AutoGen, or maybe you may be having your own Playwright, and replace the brittle XPath with getByRole, and trust the auto wait eventually, and you will see the performance improvement of your Playwright test cases. And if you have Copilot, the easy option to do this, ask the Copilot do it for you. Use the agent mode, Playwright agent to do it for you. Now you understand what is the Smart Locators. Actually, it's an 80. It's not even 20%. I have covered a lot, but if you grab 20% of this, that serves the purpose of this video and purpose of this series. In the next one, we will see the actions. We have seen click, check, and scroll, all those actions. We will see how these actions are performed in the next video. So thanks for watching and staying till here. We'll see you in the next series. That is the part 3, and we were going to cover the actions, the Playwright actions. I'll see you all over there. Until then, do a practice of this particular concept that we discussed.